Alright, hello there. Welcome to your first drafting tutorial. Today we're going to be making our title block. Now the title block is the first step to any of the board drafting we do in class. Basically we're going to be making a border around our piece of paper. And within that border we're going to have two different things. We're going to have the viewing window where your actual drawing will go. And down here on the bottom, we're going to have our title block, which contains our information about the drawing. Mostly the name of the drawing, what the part is, the name of the draftsman, which is you, your name, the scale of the drawing, whether it's full size or if we scaled it down, and also the date of the drawing. So, to start off with, here's what we're going to do first. We need to attach this paper to our drafting board. Now, if you're in my intro class, you might have a smaller drafting board than this, but everything is still applies the same. It's just you'll have a smaller board than the one I have here. So for starters, what I want you to realize is your T-square should always be on the left-hand side of the board. So I like to put a little T here on the side just to remind myself this is where the T-square goes. That way, you know, your T-square is the basis for all the lines you draw, and we want to make sure that all the lines and whatnot are off the same base point. So we're going to put the T-square on the left-hand side. Now, we're going to tape this piece of paper down. That way, all of our lines stay consistent. Nothing shifts. So what I need you to do is I need you to put your T-square on the left-hand side, and we are going to line up our paper with that T-square. So what I like to do is I just like to slide it right up to the paper, get it lined up perfectly, and then we're going to take a roll of painter's tape and we're going to take a couple small pieces of painter's tape and we're going to tape down each corner. I like to start with the top. You don't need a lot of it taped over, just the corners so it stays put. There's one corner, there's two corners. Now, since this is stationary, we can move the T-square, finish taping this off. 3 corners. Lastly, we'll do 4. There. Now, our paper should be in line with our drafting board, so we can start doing some drafting. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a border around this piece of paper. We're going to create a 1/2-inch border. So this will be a job where you're going to want to use your scale. Find your 1/2-inch mark, and you're going to make a 1/2-inch dot on all 4 sides of this paper. You're going to measure 1/2 inch in, create a dot. I'm not going to use the scale. I'm going to use the ruler on my T-square because the writing's bigger so you can see it easier. On your T-square, you have 2 sides to the T-square. You have one side that's all in 1/8 inch, one side that's all in 1/16. So I'm going to stick to the 1/8 inch so you can see the lines a little easier. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to, well, I'll use this side. You can use any inch mark you want because all inches are pretty much the same. I'm going to line it up with my 21 inches here. I'm going to measure over 1/2 inch and I'm going to create a dot. Just like that. Then I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. I'm clear over here. Measure 1/2 inch on the 1/8 inch side. That's 4 lines over. 1, 2, 3, 4. Create a dot. We'll do that on the top and bottom as well. So coming off the bottom here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1/2 inch. And off the top. Sorry if you can see my head in the shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, make a dot. Just like that. So now you should have a dot on all 4 sides of your paper. They're 1/2 inch in from the edge. Now we can start to make our border. For the horizontal borders, the ones that go this way, all we need to do is use our T-square. So I'm going to line up the T-square, line it up with that dot I made down here, this guy right here. I'm going to draw a thin line. It doesn't have to be very thick That way if you mess up, you can redo it. I'm going to draw a thin line clear across the paper, like so. I'm going to do that with the top as well. The top and bottom are fairly easy because all we're using is the T-square. The sides are going to be different, and I'll show you why here in a minute. Just like that. Alright, now these sides. I know it is very tempting to take your T-square and put it up here on the top and draw your line like that. But I'm going to ask you, do not do that. Don't do it at all. The reason why is because, like I said at the start of the video, our T-square is always up against the left-hand side when we're drawing lines. We can't put it up here because this board might not be square. So we need to make sure that we keep the T-square on the left-hand side, and we're going to draw a line using the drafting square. Now the drafting square, there's several different kinds. We're going to be using a 45-degree drafting square, but we're using the 90-degree corner. So we are going to line up our T-square with the bottom line we just made, a little bit below it. T-square is lined up. Now I'm going to take the drafting square and I'm going to put it right up flush with the T-square, like so. This way I know I have a 90-degree angle here. This line is going to be straight up and down. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to line this up. I'm going to draw my horizontal line. Or my vertical line. Sorry about that. Vertical line. Now this T-square's, or this drafting square is a little short. So I'm just going to move my T-square up a little bit and finish off that line right here. Just like that. Alright, now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. T-square stays on the left-hand side. Drafting square comes over here. We're going to make this border. There's part of it. Shift up a little bit. Finish the line out. Just like that. So now we have a 1/2-inch border all the way around our paper. Now this next part is up to you. We need to clean up these lines on the corners. Some draftsmen like to do all their erasing at the end. I'm going to do it as I draw because I don't want to miss anything. So I'm going to take my eraser shield. I'm going to line it up with each corner. I'm going to cover the part I want to keep. And I'm going to erase the rest. And what you're going to end up with when you're done is a nice clean corner. So we'll do that on all 4 sides. Make sure you pick a pencil with a big eraser, or you get yourself a big eraser, because we do a lot of erasing and drafting. Just like that. Alright. So, that's our border. Now what we're going to do is we need to create a second 1/2-inch stripe across the bottom here, and that's going to be our title block. So I'm going to use, again, you can use the scale, which I'll go ahead and use this time just because it's easier. It's a little shorter. Maybe you can see it. I hope you can see it. I'm going to line it up, the line at the 0, not the edge of the paper, the line we just drew. I'm going to line that up with the 0. I'm going to come up 1/2 inch, make a line, just like that. Then I'm going to use my T-square and I'm going to turn that little dot I just made into a line that goes clear across. Just like that. Feel free to pause the video if we're moving too fast. So what you should have right now is you should have a 1/2 inch ribbon across the bottom of your 1/2 inch border. And then I'm going to use my eraser shield and I'm going to clean up my overlap lines. Don't be afraid to go past, draw outside the lines here. That's why we have the eraser shield. It's going to help us clean things up later. So now we have ourselves our title block ribbon. But we need to divide this title block into 4 boxes for the name of the drawing, the name of the draftsman, the scale, and the date. So this is the one part most students forget about. This is the part where they forget these measurements. So if it helps you, I would write down these measurements off to the side of your board if you need to remember it. We're gonna go 3.5, 3.5, and then 2. So we'll have 2 boxes that are 3.5. We're gonna have 2 boxes that are 2 inches. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure that right now. I'll use the T-square so you can see what I'm talking about. We're gonna line it up with the border of the title block. We're going to measure over 1, 2, 3, 3.5, right there. We're going to line up with that mark. We're going to go 1, 2, 3.5. So now we have 2 marks that are 3.5 inches apart. Our next step is we're going to go 2 inches over, line it up there. So now we have now we have 2 boxes that are 2 inches wide each. So now I'm going to take my T-square and my drafting square, and I'm going to create lines here so we know exactly how big these boxes are. There's 1. There's 2. And there's 3. And again, don't be afraid to draw lightly. I'm not drawing lightly for the most part, so you can see what I'm doing here. So now we have our boxes. I'm going to take this and I'm going to clean up my overlap. Like I said, you can choose whether or not you want to do this to start, or if you want to do this at the end. Or if you want to erase as you go, or if you want to erase when you're completely done with the drawing. I like to do it as I go so I don't miss anything. Plus, it's pretty satisfying. You get to clean up your lines, leave nice clean lines all over the place. All right. Sorry about that. We have some motion activated lights in here in the shop, so I gotta turn them on every once in a while. Don't forget to clean off your eraser shavings every now and then. Never use your hands. You don't want to smudge your drawing. Now there's one thing I'm noticing here as I'm drawing, and that's that my measurements are a little bit off. If I look over here, this is not quite 1/2 inch. I measured too far in. This is too wide of a block. So that's an easy fix. What I'm gonna do, using my eraser shield, I'm gonna make this line go away. Excuse me. That's why we do this in pencil. I'm going to fix this line. Don't be afraid to stop what you're doing and fix a mistake. Especially early on in the drawing, you want to make sure you get these things cleaned up so they don't mess you up later on. And that's very possible. This is a critical part of your drafting because if you make a mistake here, it could impact your entire drawing later. So I'm going to remeasure that and do this one right. I prefer correct work to fast work. 1/2 inch. Line it up. Oh, got a little wobbly there. I'm glad this is for the video because it's important that you see that you fix your mistakes. Make sure it's lined up perfect. Scoot it up a little bit. Go again. And we'll extend our lines so we have a complete title block. There we go. So this is our basic title block. Before I do anything else, I'm going to label these boxes here. Each of these boxes has a label that we need to use. So label 1, make sure you write this in all capital letters. The standard for our blueprints, our drafting, is all capital letters. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go drawing. You might want to write small if you're the type of person who writes big like myself. make sure you try your best to write small. The name of the drawing, the name of the draftsman, we're just going to call it name. See, I almost wrote in lowercase there, but I wanted in uppercase. I'm going to go ahead and put my name here while I'm doing this. You'll put your full name, but I'm just putting the name you know me by, which is Mr. Zink. The next box, we're going to put the scale. And lastly, we're going to put the date. All right, our boxes are labeled. Now, you would think we're done here, but we're not. The first step of all your drawings after the title block is we need an X and Y axis here in this square right here. This is called our viewing window. So we're going to measure this view window. If I measure this with my T-square, you can also use your scale. I'm using this so you can see it. Our measurement is about 11 inches across, 7.5 inches down. So we need to divide this into 4 sections, so we need to take both those measurements and divide them in half. So what we're going to do is, you can take out a calculator or just do this in your head. We're going to take half of 11 inches. If you do the calculation, if you do the math, you're going to find out that half of 11 inches is actually 5.5 inches. So I'm going to line up my T-square here, or you use your scale. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. I'm going to make a little mark there. It's important that this cross we're putting in the middle here is as light as possible, because you will erase it later. It's not going to stay there for the whole drawing. So I got that. I'm going to take my drafting square, going to line it up, make a very faint line. Whoop, got a little bit of a wobble. Very faint line. It doesn't have to touch the title block. I'm going to divide this viewing window in half. And remember, you might want to write that down on your board, just like these measurements here. 5.5 inward for the y-axis. Pretend like this is an axis, like in math class. Y-axis, now we need to do the x-axis. Like I said earlier, our viewing window is 7.5 inches tall. So we need to do the math on that. Now, if you do the math without a calculator, here's a real easy way to find half of 7.5. Take half of 7, which if you know that, that's 3.5. You take half of a half, which if you do the math is a quarter, 0.25, 1/4. So now you take 3.5 plus a quarter, you're going to get 3 3/4. So we need to measure, and I recommend measuring along this x-axis. We're going to measure 3 3/4 up. So I have 3 3/4 lined up on the bottom here. 3 3/4 up, we're going to mark it off at the 0. You can always measure, it's kind of a backwards measuring, you know, starting at where you want to be, marking it off at 0. That's okay, it's the same measurement. So I marked it off here. Now I'm going to draw a faint line, really light line, going across. That's our X and Y axis. That's going to be very crucial to your drawings, because if you do a single view drawing, it has to be in the middle of the view window. If you do a multi-view drawing, well, you have your different views now. So remember that for your title block. This is the first step you do in every drawing in my class. So if you need to, refer back to this video, and don't be afraid to look back and see how we did this, so you can make sure this part is right. Because if you get this wrong, your whole drawing is going to be just a little bit off. So make sure you get this part down. So now we're done. We're ready for our first drawing, which will be in the next video. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.